you've been extremely busy building this OpEx Lean Six Sigma process analysis, statistical analysis software, which you're calling SVEND.ai. And the part of it which I was particularly impressed by was the value stream mapping module. Can you talk a little bit about where you are with the product now? Because it's not 100% complete. And I think you're going to try and give us a little demo, a little feel for it.
Yep. But yeah, and I'm going to briefly kind of tell the story of Spend, because I've never done this before, and a lot of things have kind of come full circle with it now. So this thing started with a project that I had begun, just slowly over many years, which was trying to capture a lot of the stuff that I was doing in like Python code, basically.
Yep.
And a lot of this was, long before AI was a thing, and me learning it on something called Stack Exchange and like Googling questions and, kind of figuring things out the hard way and then going back, fixing them. So it was many years and years. A lot of that started to kind of culminate into something coherent a little more than a year ago. And that was not Spend. What that was called was something called Meganura, which, if you've never heard of it, it's named after a Carboniferous dragonfly. So it was the largest land predator back in the Carboniferous era when the atmosphere was oxygen rich and insects got massive. So it was this big, 5-foot wingspan dragonfly. And yeah, I named it after that. I got an ex-girlfriend an ex-girlfriend's daughter, a $200 little, they're called jelly cats actually. They're big in the UK. That's where they come from. This like $200 stuffed animal that was a dinosaur.
All right.
And happened to be like watching something on dinosaurs when I was in Missouri one night, and it, kind of made me think. So I decided to name it after that. And that kind of became the like repository of, all of this code and like all of these things that were starting to come together. And I'm sorry, my cat is circling my feet right now, like meowing.
Oh, we've got it all going on. We've got it all going on.
Yeah, so that ultimately became Spend, and originally it literally became it because it was bolted onto the web app, and it was clunky in that regard because I literally had this like massive thing that I was trying to like turn into a web, So the first version of it was me trying to do a lot of things in one, which was all of those simulators and like trying to kind of build out quality integrate, doing all these things. And the idea was I wanted to, try to do my job, in something that actually made sense. And then kind of had this realization that, there was no way to capture all the variation in it. There's no point in trying to do that. So kind of the better use of it was it's very good at being a VSM tool with kind of counterfactual lot sizing and all that other stuff. And I don't necessarily have to lose all of what, was in that Meganura engine. So, a bunch of us kind of took this different look at it, which is, well, ultimately the simulations that we want to go for are going to be, kind of increasingly rich and flexible because industry is variable. Not to mention, this is something that we might want to apply in healthcare or in service or, wherever, because it's kind of, from our point of view, as much a tool that we use in a consulting practice as it is, a product that we'd sell. So we kind of took a different view of it, which was why not make this, more along the lines of something that's, reusable and composable than, this big kind of monolith of a singular app that does everything. So we kind of split out, the functionalities. So there's now an engine to it, and then Spend, which is just the web app portion of it. And that's a bit too technical, but the engine portion of it really got its own treatment independent of like Spend itself. And we kind of realized in the building of that ultimately what we were building was kind of in parallel with like a video game engine. So that was the approach we ended up taking with it.
Wow.
So Spend is now running on basically the early stages of like, what's equivalent to a video game engine. So video game engines, they have all of the standard physics and stuff like that. So when you're like running as a player, like the footprints and all the things in the graphics, like all of that's just baked into it. So developers can just call it easily and then just build whatever they want and focus on the story and kind of like the narrative and things like that. And that's what makes video game development possible in the first place. So you're not spending, 12 years on development each and every single time. So we kind of took the same idea, which is, rather than building a graphics first kind of heavy thing, It's more of let's focus on the depth of the simulation and also the compatibility with actual organizations which work in things like CAD. So right now, what I'm going to kind of show is, basically I can take a value stream map and flip it into an overhead view that runs with WIP accumulating, and it's all in its beta version right now. But what the engine is doing kind of behind the scenes that I haven't surfaced yet is there's people moving around, and they're moving around with things like pallet jacks and forklifts and things like that. There's aisle widths, and then there's actual machine footprints. And right now they're all rectangles, but the engine itself imports from CAD. So if I have a machine's footprint, I can import it into my VSM, lay it out on the floor, put existing components like pallets and things like that, designate them for work in progress, and start to build out my actual shop floor, kind of parameterize all of these things, and then let it play out. And all of that kind of is in line with the VSM itself, and they mirror one another. So that's the idea is, and the vision that I was going for here was right now VSMs work really, really well on flip chart with post-it notes and a team of people doing that what if analysis together. You'll never ever beat that with, an engineer in software, interviewing people, gathering data and that sort of, that you'll never ever beat that.